So portable Bluetooth speakers are a really crowded space, but this right here might be my new favorite portable Bluetooth speaker. Well, let's kind of rewind a little bit. When somebody shows you a Bluetooth speaker, there's really three main things that Bluetooth speakers are competing on. Three main things somebody's going to show you and really use when they're making buying decisions in this market. The volume, the sound quality, and the aesthetics. Other things like features and mic quality and weight definitely matter, but I would say those are the three main things that people think about when they're buying them. And this, compared to the last generation from Sony, is wildly different in each of those three categories. In my opinion, Sony made some really massive steps forward on these two speakers here, and I think, like I said, yeah, these could definitely be my new favorite portable Bluetooth speakers. So in this video, I'm gonna unpack why that is, what changed about these, and the pros and cons after having used these for the past couple weeks. So let's start off with the names of them. Sony now has their ULT lineup. They're kind of tying it together. In the past, they had like the Sony SRS XV or XG 300, like I don't even remember the names, honestly. It was something like that, the 100 to 300. It was a total disaster with names. But now they have their ULT lineup. The smaller ones are called Field, the larger ones are called Towers. It kind of makes sense like that. So there was the ULT Field 1 that came out last year, the ULT Tower 10, which I also reviewed last year, and then these in the middle are kind of filling in the gap of what I would say are probably the most important sizes, the ones you're going to bring to like a little cookout or a party, a pickup basketball game, the ones that are going to fit in your backpack or at least like over your shoulder, not like a giant thing, but definitely loud enough to get the job done. And these are the ULT Field 3, which is the smaller of these two, and the ULT Field 5, which I absolutely love this thing. I think it's the perfect size for a lot of situations, as we'll talk about throughout this video. And going through those three main points of a Bluetooth speaker that people talk about, the design being the first one, I mean, maybe let me know if you disagree, but I think this design looks significantly better than the other one in the past. Like this one just didn't really look like it was a Sony. Like it just says Sony really small on the bottom. It doesn't feel as premium with this kind of recycled fabric and just rubber coating around there. The new one just looks and feels really solid, really nice. It comes in several different colors. So the Field 3 comes in off-white, black, and forest gray, which I have an example of that with the Field 1 here. It's like kind of a greenish, a very desaturated green, I would say. And then the Field 5 only comes in two colors, being off-white and black. But looking at the designs here, kind of tying in, like I said, the premium aesthetic here, besides the lights, we'll talk about the lights in a second, we have a very heavy-duty strap on the top with metal buckles, and the strap is very optional. So if you want the strap, first of all, it's super adjustable in length, can get very, very long or very, very short, but if you decide you don't like it, there are these little rubber tabs you just pull up on the side and push down. I'll try to demo this in some B-roll, and then boom, you no longer have that hook for the strap. So if you don't want it, completely gone. If you do want it because you're gonna hang this up or just carry it around on your shoulder, very easy to reattach that. One little downside here is that the way the hook setup works, it is a little bit tricky to undo it. You can't just slide it in and pull it back. It's kind of like a fishing hook with a barb there, so you need to kind of use two hands to kind of finagle that out of there. Across the top, you'll see our buttons on both of these are essentially the same buttons. The only difference being the Field 3 has a little phone icon above the play pause and the Field 5 does not. So we have the power button with a little charging indicator light below that. We have our Bluetooth button to put it in pairing mode, but also to turn on stereo pairing. So if you press this for 1 minute, it'll search for other speakers in the area and you can have multiple speakers connected. We have the connect button there. So Party Connect, you can have up to 100 speakers on here. We have the play pause. You could also double press it for playback controls to skip a song, for example. Volume down, volume up, and then over on the right side, the Alt button. Now the Alt button is essentially an EQ button. I'll show you how that works and actually demonstrate it with some sound tests. It's going to be lifting your bass a lot. So some people are really going to love that. If you're in like a certain environment, it's really going to make a very impactful difference. But looking at the back of these speakers, we can flip open that little tab there and we have USB Type-C charging for both of them. We have audio input through a 3.5mm port on the 5 only. That does not exist on the 3. We also have a battery button on both of them. You just press that, it'll tell you with a little voice what the battery level is. And then we have a light button on the 5, but not the 3. And that's because the ULT Field 5 has lights on the side and on the outside here, where the 3, unfortunately, does not have any lights on it. So a little bit of a drawback on that one, but for the 5, the lights are really making a big difference compared to the older models. So this one in particular, you really see that it shines more on the table and also like out a little bit. They're also much brighter and you can see them from more angles, not just from the side where last generation, you really had to be like kind of like sideways and to see it. If you're in front of it listening to the music, it's almost impossible in a not super dark room to know the lights were even on. So again, that first category of being the aesthetics, I think this one is a significant improvement. It also feels very dense, so they made it a pretty compact, boxy design, so you could listen to it standing up or laying down. You're gonna get the best experience when it's laying down, being that you have your 2 passive radiators on the side. You also have 1 woofer on this and 2 tweeters on the 5, whereas the 3, again, 2 passive radiators, 1 woofer, and only 1 tweeter on that one. Being smaller, it kind of does make sense. All right, let me power this up, and I'm gonna show you the app now. And speaking of the lights, Sony allows you to customize this in the app, and I'm gonna show you everything on the app, but the button on the back of the speaker, you might have noticed there is a light button. That'll turn the lights on or off, but if you wanna change the colors, you go into the app. Fortunately, thank you, Sony. They condensed this down to just 1 app instead of needing multiple apps, 1 for the lights and then 1 for like the EQ and the settings. Now it's all in the Sony Sound Connect app. So looking at the app right there, it'll tell you what devices are connected. So we do have multi-point on here. Right now, this is connected to my OnePlus 13R. It's playing back through LDAC. It shows us the battery level. If we tap on the top, or if you just refresh this, it'll kind of spin the speaker around, show you kind of a nice little animation there. There's Bluetooth standby if you want to change some of the settings related to that. And you can customize what this layout actually is. I do appreciate that. If you want to have certain features shown at the top or certain features just not even shown, like, hey, maybe I never want to alternate Bluetooth standby, I can remove that from my app right here. We have the function here so you can have audio in or Bluetooth. Very easy to toggle that on your phone. So if it's connected by a cable and you're like, hey, I want to play on my phone, you can do that and just kind of override it from the app here. You have playback controls, volume control, and then like I said, instead of having other apps like Party Light, you can customize the lights right here. And so I don't know if you're going to be able to see this on camera here, but I can move it over to like green. I can move it down to really any color I want. And you can also do custom colors over there besides just party flash. So I'm gonna reset that to the original colors, and then I'll go back. And the other one is DJ controls. This is really cool. If you're playing back music at like a party, for example, I think this is kind of just a fun little thing to play with. You can either like isolate certain sounds. You can go to the DJ and just like play like a drum, scratch. You could do an audience sound. Voice.
Come on.
I wouldn't use that. Oh, and then this one. So you got these fun things on there. I don't know how much you'd actually use that, but it does exist. Then we have device settings on the bottom. Device settings, of course, you can change a custom EQ on here, and the EQ, I believe, is a 10-band EQ on the Alt Field 5 and 7-band on the Alt Field 3. You can choose the Bluetooth connection if you want priority on sound quality or connection stability. So right now, sound quality is giving me LDAC on here, and you can also enable or disable sound field optimization. And like I said, in the app, you can connect up to 100 different devices using Party Connect with all these different speakers. If you have a lot of Sony speakers, I can't imagine anyone having 100 of these, but maybe if you have like 10 and you have 1 per room in your house for a little party, that could be a really cool setup. So I mentioned doing a little demo of the sound. I'm gonna be playing both these speakers separately and testing 2 different things. One test is going to be the volume, so I'll play it at very low volume, mid volume, and high volume, and I'll show it on the screen what that is. And by the way, this will be decibel compensated, so when you're listening to this, it's not going to be ultra quiet and then blow your eardrums out. I will be adjusting that in post, and I'll just show, like, I'll probably have something propped up next to these to measure the actual decibels so you understand how loud they actually are. And the second test is going to be the sound profile, specifically with the neutral sound profile, not EQing anything, and then turning Alt on once or Alt on twice for the larger one, and then the smaller one, you can just do it off or Alt. It only goes to Alt 1. It doesn't have the second level of Alt on here. And while we're at it, we might as well compare it to the old XG300 and see how the sound compares there. All right, now let's get into a microphone test.
So this is the audio from the Sony ULT Field 3. It's sitting just on my table right here. So something that's interesting though, as you'll notice from the play pause button on these two speakers, the Field 5 does not have the ability to answer phone calls or use a microphone on there, where the Field 3 absolutely does. So on maybe a desktop speaker, if you're just working with this one, you totally could use this in like a conference call or something. But let me know how this microphone sounds and if you're really able to hear what I'm saying clearly here.
Now some rapid fire on specs. These are both IP67. The Field 3 has a 24-hour battery life, which is nice. It's pretty regular, but what I like that Sony does is they also tell us the real battery life at max volume, which, let's be honest, a lot of times that's what we're using these at, which is 5 hours on the Field 3. The Field 5 is claimed for 25 total hours, and at max volume with the lighting on in alt level, I think 2 is going to give you 2.5 hours, so significantly less, but this thing does get very, very loud, so at max volume, you really are pushing out a lot of sound there. The prices on these, $199 US for the Field 3 and $329 for the Field 5. Significantly more expensive, but you definitely are getting a much better device, bigger sound, more features, more lighting obviously, but I think Sony's really building out this lineup pretty well for the Field 1, the Field 3, the Field 5. They also have the Tower 9, which I don't have at the moment. I can make a review of that if you guys want. And then the Tower 10, an absolute beast. I loved using that thing, and I actually have other videos on the Tower 10 as it is. So let me know what you want me to compare these two in the comments down below. Thanks for watching. I'm Mike O'Brien, and I'll see you in the next video.